everybody, it's Eric Pappenfuss. It's Friday, so it must be a buy day. And today, Amanda, we're going to continue with our theme of the American Revolution. And we're going to look at two colonial American printers, both German, and how they ended up on different sides during the American Revolution. Okay?
All right.
And the reason we're doing this, Amanda, is an amazing book came into Book Buy last Thursday. Now, we get a lot of books that are printed in German. Some are a little more exciting than others. But this was by far one of the more interesting books ever to walk in our door during open book buy hours. And it is a Sauer Bible. Now, Christopher Sauer was perhaps the most famous German printer in colonial America. And I'm opening it up here to the title page for the New Testament because, like a lot of Bibles from that time, this Bible is incomplete. It does not have the initial prefaces or the initial title page, but it does have the New Testament title page, which gives us that wonderful date of 1763. Now, when we talk about Christopher Sauer and the Sauer Bible, we're talking about the first Bible published in America in any language other than English. And for this book in particular, Amanda, we're talking about the first Bible published in America using American-made paper and American-made ink and British type that was imported. If you can see, let's just see if we can take a little look at this paper. I'm going to turn on a flashlight, get it behind the paper, and can you see the marks, the lines in that paper? Okay, this is showing you that it is rag paper, homemade rag paper. Sauer had a paper mill in the U.S., and paper was made by taking rags and basically pulping them, pounding them in big bins until all the fibers became loose, and then you would take almost like a strainer and you would lift up those fibers and you create this homemade paper. And it took a lot of paper to make the Sauer Bible. Now, this is the second edition of the Sauer Bible, and this was by the original Christopher Sauer's son, who was also named Christopher Sauer. So when we're talking about Christopher Sauer, we're talking about the son, Christopher Sauer II, who was the printer who went up through the time of the American Revolution and published this copy of his father's Bible. The first Bible only had 1,000 copies made. And 20 years later, he published a new edition of 2,000 Bibles. And this Bible sort of put him on the map. It was very popular. It made a lot of money, and it was one of the great books of colonial Pennsylvania. What I like about this Bible, Amanda, is although there is some damage, it has the wonderful original binding and these great wooden boards. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
That's wood. And that's because the Bible was bound by his friends at the Ephrata Cloister. Have you ever been to the Ephrata Cloister?
I have not.
It is a good place to visit. You can actually go today and you can see some of the things that were printed there. But if you look in here, you can see how it was bound together. The pages were all stitched together, and then leather was literally nailed. Do you see these nails?
Yeah.
Nailed into the wooden boards, and they needed wood for a Bible like this because it was stronger than the cardboard that they could produce by sticking paper together. But that's how that's very characteristic of the Ephrata Cloister's work. It costs more to get the Bible bound than if you just wanted an unbound copy. And there aren't too many today. Now, you'll also notice that the Bible is interesting, at least I think it's interesting, because it uses this sort of traditional script, traditional German script, right? This is called Fraktur typeface, as opposed to Roman typeface, which is what most books in America were published in. Here you can get a sense of the different thing. This is how books in Germany were published at the time, and most of Sauer's readers were more comfortable reading this type of typeface, so this was really a book published for the masses. And Sauer's the first to use that. Isn't that beautiful? I told you he produced his own ink. You know what the ink was made out of?
Oh, I don't know.
Linseed oil,
Okay.
squeezed from flax and basically with a little carbon added. So it's held up pretty well. I'd say remarkably well for a couple hundred years. Now, this is a Luther Bible, meaning it's the official Martin Luther translation. And Sauer published it mostly for the German immigrants in Pennsylvania, who were a wide array of different faiths, from traditional Lutherans to Anabaptists, Mennonites, you name it. But he sort of not only added to the Luther Bible some other aspects, some of his own commentary, a little bit from other translations, a couple extra books of the Apocrypha. And so it was very challenging to the elites in colonial America. They did not approve of it, but it was a Bible that could be used by many different types of Protestant denominations in Pennsylvania. And he was also very much aligned with the Quakers, and the Quakers could also utilize the Bible as well, which is pretty interesting. We also have, Amanda, some other examples of Christopher Sauer's work published at about the same time. And I wanted to show you these as well. This one walked in the door a week ago. These we've had for a little longer, but let me show you here two different examples. First, we have more of his traditional work. This is a German book of mysticism. By mysticism, again, we mean sort of unraveling the mysteries of the Bible and making them sense to the common reader. And it is interesting because it has a Lancaster County ownership, which makes sense because Sauer himself, while this was published in Germantown, which is part of Philadelphia, he did have a farm in Lancaster County. And this would have been read by everybody from Mennonites to Anabaptists to Lutherans to really anybody. And again, you see that wonderful Fraktur typeface. Now, he did also commercially print some things in English and in a Roman typeface. And this book is interesting because that is an example of his printing with Roman type. And note that when he printed in Roman type, he anglicized his name Sauer, and actually his descendants all went by Sauer. Which is also interesting. So these are all from about the same period in time. This book has been rebound, and it's been rebound in a very British Cambridge binding style, which is, I guess, appropriate for the English translated, but the German readers of his books would have preferred a plain binding, a very simple binding as a prayer book. You know who Sauer's big competition was in Pennsylvania?
Ooh.
It was Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, of course.
And Benjamin Franklin really wasn't a big fan of Sauer and wanted to do everything he could to stop Sauer. But eventually sold Sauer paper and sold Sauer other things, and they managed to get along. But Sauer was a pacifist, and like many Anabaptists, did not believe in war. He was aligned with the Quakers, as I said, but he did not support the American movement for independence. He started off against the Stamp Act because it was against the importing of sort of foreign language literature. But nonetheless, he said no to conflict. And it's a sad story for Sauer because by the time of the Revolution, his presses are seized. And the third edition of this Bible, very famously, is called the Gunwide Bible because the American troops took pages from the Bible and used it to sort of mash the musket balls down their rifles because he was a loyalist and refused to advocate a break from England. And his grandchildren, the original Christopher Sauer's grandchildren, or this Christopher Sauer's children, actually all became loyalists and ended up in Canada. Now, the flip side, I promised you a second German printer. The flip side of this is a German printer by the name of Henry Miller. And Henry Miller was, unlike Sauer, an apprentice to Benjamin Franklin. Here's a copy of a similarly timed Philadelphia imprint by Miller, Heinrich Miller. Started off as an apprentice to Franklin, and he advocated something much different with his German readers. He advocated resistance, a sort of pro-American independence, and the sort of opposite of this pacifism, leave us alone. And when he published religious texts, they weren't just the sort of German mysticism of European authors, they were American authors. And if you look at this as well, Johann Steiner here is actually one of the Reformed ministers in Philadelphia. So he's publishing American authors, slightly different message, and that message becomes rebel. And it's actually, it's Miller who publishes one of the first English translations of the Declaration of Independence. And he becomes a printer to the Continental Congress, and he represents the sort of new spirit of German immigration, which was one that was more of an effort at assimilation and integration than Sauer had proposed. One final little note, when Sauer becomes a loyalist and his Bibles are used for ammunition, his presses are sold off at auction at a very low price, and guess who gets to buy them? It's Henry Miller.
Huh.
And other properly colonial patriots. So that's our little history of German printers. It's really neat that this stuff still walks in the door today.
Yeah.
And is still possessed in families all throughout central Pennsylvania. Okay, we're going to end with a funny book, Amanda.
Okay.
I chose a Benjamin Franklin theme book because, well, it's just a little bit funny. And it is Benjamin Franklin as
Classic.
you didn't read in school.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I like about this book is this is a real letter he wrote to friends in England, explaining why it is helpful to fart proudly. But I thought I'd give you a choice. I will either read you a little bit of a drinking song that Franklin wrote, or we can have a trivia question about the best ways to choose a mistress.
Ooh.
Which would you prefer?
I'm going to go with the mistress.
Okay, all right. We're skipping the drinking song and we're going straight to the mistress. These are actual Benjamin. Now we know
It's
Benjamin.
useful information.
Do you have a favorite Benjamin Franklin aphorism, by the way?
Ooh.
You normally think he's early, better, late, right? All that type of stuff. But actually, good advice on how to choose a mistress. Top 8 reasons in choosing a mistress.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you my favorite one.
Yeah.
I won't even make you guess what the top 8 reasons for choosing mistress are, but I like this one because the sin is less, much less than the debauching a poor innocent person. So just go with the mistress because the sin is less. The unknown Benjamin Franklin, but very true Benjamin Franklin, that let's just say Christopher Sauer would not have approved of at all. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you'll watch next week and every week, Fridays at noon, for more adventures in the world of books.